welcome to Corinne's Picks. I'm your host, Corinne Basabe. Today is a very special show we have today. Justin Baird, he's the secretary of the New York City Young Republicans Bronx Caucus. Today is very significant because we have a political figure who's going to be talking about art and ideas. Welcome to the show.
Very glad to be here.
You know, we've talked so much off air, and I'm so eager to get into this. First, you know, before we get into the art and the ideas and concept, let's talk about your group, your organization, and basically what it's about, what you're doing.
So the New York City Young Republican Club is an organization. We have almost at this point over 1,800 members. We're the largest young Republican club in the entire country. And we unite Republicans, young Republicans, all throughout New York City, the 5 boroughs, reaching into Jersey, as well as sort of a bit of that Western Connecticut commuter belt sort of folks. And we unite them sort of in a sense to be here in the city representing and fighting for Republican values and Republican candidates.
Okay, so, you know, in this episode, we're going to be talking about how you go about that. Like, how do you take that idea and convey it to your audience? And also, I want to know who your audience is. But before we get into the images, if you don't mind, I know I hate the idea of reading, but we have a quote. Can we show the quote to the audience? They can see the first slide of the quote. I took a quote from your website. I can see without my glasses. America is not just a power, it is a promise. It is not enough for our country to be extraordinary in might. It must also be exemplary in meaning, that keyword meaning. And you know, me as an artist and somebody who loves the art is all about ideas and it's all about conveying meaning. So let's get into that.
So I think it's, by the way, Nelson Rockefeller, former vice president, you know, we have a portrait of him up in our clubhouse downtown because, you know, former governor of New York, absolutely important figure. But, you know, America, since it was founded, you know, we've always imagined ourselves as the city on the hill. We've always been something different. We've always been something better. You know, we might be the most powerful country on the planet. We might have, you know, untold wealth compared to the rest of the world. But if we don't have a deeper meaning and we don't fight for something, then why are we fighting, you know, at all? There's a great quote that I forget who it was who said it, but, you know, either live for something or you die for nothing, right? And that's what I think as we Americans, we have to sort of embody. What we do in the Bronx Caucus is the idea that, you know, we're fighting for something, and that's something I think is a better New York for all New Yorkers.
We just came through one of the most, you know, interesting campaigns in the United States
That's a word for it, yeah.
I mean, we had Trump on one side with Make America Great, with the red hats everywhere, T-shirts, and we had Biden and Kamala. And I thought it was interesting that, you know, on one side had a brand in terms of that red hat and the MAGA slogan, and the other side didn't really brand them. I'm sorry, I didn't think that they really branded. I'm not sure what the objects were that represented the Democratic Party.
Well, I think for a lot of people, they thought the same thing. You know, there was all this talk about, for Kamala Harris, the brat summer, as some people have said, you know, but for the most part, it seemed very astroturfed. But if you look at, you know, Make America Great Again and the hat itself, I don't think this has been talked about much, but, you know, the fact that what are the two colors that you see on the hat? You see red, you see white. What other great American institution is red and white? Coca-Cola. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the Bronx, San Francisco, Madison, Wisconsin. If you are an American, you drink Coke.
So has that been this, is that your opinion? Has that been known that that's actually why they chose red?
So, you know, red's always been associated with the Republican Party. The idea of the elephant as well goes back all the way. You know, the donkey is sort of a thing that's appeared more recently for the Democrats, but, you know, the elephant is an old figure associated with the party, the grand old party, the GOP.
And what does the elephant signify?
So the elephant signifies, you know, sort of, it's been theorized different sort of, you know, reasons sort of what it represents, but for me at least, it speaks to someone differently. And for me, it represents something that's, large, you don't want to mess with an elephant. Strength, power, and the ability to, for the most part, an elephant is, you don't bother it, but, it is not an aggressive sort of creature. Don't mess with us.
The donkey is, I think, represents kind of like the working man, the person who labors by their hand.
Well, for, the donkey is a more recent sort of association with, the Democrats. But, there's, what matters most importantly is what sort of, what meaning people attach to these, figures. So it's very, I think it's very interesting that, even though you're showing a donkey and an elephant, the two colors that you see, red, white, and blue, right? Are both sort of associated with them. They're both, you very rarely see them painted as anything else.
And I've taken, business classes before and have had a business storefront before in California. And one of the first things they say is that you have to, try to find a slogan or some statement that identifies what your business is about. Like my business was Chi Gallery, art for the heart and soul. Right? Yeah,
and for sort of identifying what your market is, how you're appealing to certain people, is very important. I think I may have mentioned this before to you. The idea of it's how you market something that's more important. Marshall McLuhan had the old saying, "The medium is the message," and what that means is that it doesn't matter what you're saying. What matters is how you say it and what method you're using to actually address it. If you put something, if you're putting something out there which doesn't speak to people and it's on something they don't listen to or hear, they're not going to pay any attention.
Also, you say the medium, the cap is something that everybody's wearing these caps, baseball caps.
Yep.
It was brilliant. Let's get to there's a few more images, and if you could just unpack some of these images. Can I have the next one? So these are these are brilliant because as 2025, you look at either one and you know exactly what it's about.
Exactly. And if you look at the American flag and the symbol for the Red Cross right there, well, the American flag, it's very much a unifying sort of thing. At least we aspire it to be. We want it to be. I find it interesting that if you find protests all around the world, ranging from Canada, where I'm originally from, all the way to Iran and vice versa, what people wave during these protests, oftentimes they wave the American flag, despite being in a different country. And the reason for that is because this flag represents freedom. It represents independence. It represents a noble goal that they wish to achieve. Right. And what do they use to sort of show that? They choose the American flag. The symbol for the Red Cross is, again, more universal, the idea of help. You can always sort of point to it.
And it's neutral. It's like it won't be fired upon. It can go in war zones, and that's the one safe zone is where that flag is.
Well, it's interesting you say neutral because, it's basically the inverse of the flag of Switzerland. The flag of Switzerland is, a white cross on a red background. So, funny little sort of connection there. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
And can you just tell the audience, what do the colors of the American flag represent?
Well, I mean, they sort of represent, again, you have the 13 stripes, representing the 13 colonies, a star for, again, every state in the Union, right? And that's gradually been added to over time. The actual design of the flag has been changed many times to incorporate those new states. But, red, white, and blue, I mean, aside from the fact that it just rolls off the tongue very well, red, white, and blue, right? It really represents sort of a unifying, cohesion of the American public, where we can all stand for the national anthem, we can all hold our hearts, our hands over our hearts, and sort of support our country.
Right. Okay, so let's look at the next image. So this is an interesting one. This is the Green Party. Any thoughts?
Well, I was just going to say that, there are, it's funny how certain colors, throughout the world, tend to be associated with different parties. So, of course, the Greens, many different Green parties in many different, countries around the world, tend to use the color green because, at the core, these are a lot of environmentalist sort of
and this
parties.
is
So,
very direct. It's like, the save the planet and the path forward is greening the path, saving our environment.
yeah, you have a green planet, and you have, the what appear to be leaves on the side. It doesn't get much more direct from that. And I think, at least with the Young Republican Club, what we've tried to do is brand sort of messages and design sort of, images that sort of speak to New Yorkers, speak to Republicans, speak to people living in the city.
Which people in the city? I mean, some people would argue that it's a tale of two cities or three cities, and that's why I kind of want to get into the Bronx because I'm really curious to see who you guys think the Bronx is.
So, well, I always go back to the most recent election that happened. Donald Trump, overall, he won about nearly 30% of the vote in the Bronx, which is the highest amount for a Republican candidate in over 40 years. 1 out of 4 people in the Bronx who voted in the last election was a Republican. They went into the ballot box and they cast their vote for Donald Trump.
But what was their income, race, occupation?
Well,
that's what I'm interested in.
Well, what's most interesting, I think, is the fact that this is not your dad's Republican Party in the sense that it's, this is a party which is much more, urban. This is much more multilingual, multi-ethnic, comes from much more of a working class background. And I think the most important thing, and what we tend to represent with the Caucus and the Young Republican Club, is it's aspirational. It's the idea that you can do better. We encourage you to do better. America is not a bad country. You are not a bad person. We want this country to succeed. We believe in growing the pie, making it bigger for everyone else, no matter what your background is.
And I think that's a baseline, goal. Everybody can understand prosperity.
Yes, and that's true. And, the idea that everyone wants to leave a better future for their kids. Everyone wants to be able to grow up in a place where they have safe streets, safe societies, and we may disagree on how we get there, but we, as Republicans, we believe that you have the right, living in New York, the greatest city on earth, to have a great experience.
Okay, in 30 seconds, we're going to go to a commercial and we'll resume our wonderful talk about ideas in politics.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. We have a wonderful guest today. We have Justin Baird. He is Secretary of the New York City Young Republicans Bronx Caucus. I'm so glad that you guys are in Bronx.
Glad to be here on the greatest borough in the greatest city on earth.
I agree. You know, we've been talking about ideas in politics, ideas, and how that's conveyed visually, and how it's been done. Basically, we've been just looking at logos and flags so far, but I'm just really interested in terms of how that will be done in the Bronx, because you know, you guys are creating a unique brand in terms of, like, I guess the operative word is young Republicans, and you know, you've told me it's not my dad's
Republican Party, yeah.
And he was a Republican, by the way. Anyway, so let's finish up with some more of the images, and then we'll get into your plans for the Bronx and your image for the Bronx. This one is an interesting one. I'm not sure if everybody might remember this, but this was the Black Panther logo. Anybody that's any Afro-American my age, as soon as you see the Panther, you know exactly what that was about.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, at least for me, is the fact that you see something where, you know, it's very rare to actually have, you know, sort of text on like something like that on a logo. But in this case, you know, very bold, very striking, you know, with the yellow. And if you think of a panther, a very powerful animal, very, you know, sort of assertive, sort of grabbing power back, power to the people, right? You know, bold, striking, you know, purely as sort of a symbol, very, I would give it top marks.
I think, like, you know, there was the abolition of slavery. Reconstruction was horrific in terms of, like, the lynchings and you know, a lot of people came in the Great Migration north, and they found that, you know, it wasn't paragraphed. There was a lot of police brutality. There was, you know, economic challenges. So the realization of, you know, that black was beautiful, you know, the whole slogan, black is beautiful, black power was a revolutionary act psychologically. That was a huge leap for black people. In those days, they didn't have even, today I have, you know, makeup. The makeup I'm wearing is my color. I mean, it was a completely different world. And so even wearing your natural hair, so to have a panther and that expresses power. Well,
you know, one thing I was just going to do to sort of link it back to the you know, the Young Republican Club in the Bronx Caucus is the fact that, you know, during the Great Migration, a lot of people, you know, came to New York City. And why did they come to New York City? Because they wanted to have a better life for themselves and for their children. And, you know, the idea of 40 acres and a mule sort of after, you know, the end of the Civil War, you know, this may be New York City, you know, hard to get 40 acres in New York City, but, you know, the idea that, you know, you can have a much better future for you and your family in this city, because this is the greatest city on earth. I'm a proud resident of the Bronx. I believe that we can improve it, we can do better, and we should do better.
Absolutely. And I think we're at a pivotal point where I think a lot of people of color are weighing their options, because people think the biggest thing on the table is race and racism. But for many people, it's economics and just trying to find a way forward.
You know, the old quote that the only color that matters is green, you know, because...
I'm wearing green today. Green is my party.
You know, I mean, well, in a sense, you know, it's, there's really sort of a distinction between, one thing I find kind of interesting, actually, is the fact that Trump's Republican Party, or the people who voted for Trump, skew much younger than you know, you would normally expect. You know, it's young people from a wide variety of different backgrounds who really, you know, took the opportunity to use this election to go out and vote for Donald Trump in numbers in the city, not just in the Bronx, but in Queens, in Manhattan, Staten Island. You know, best numbers for a Republican candidate in over 50 years here. There is something being said by Donald Trump that appeals to people living in the city. And I think Part of that is that he's willing to go out and talk when other Republican candidates did not. He went out to Crotona Park. He spoke to people. He went to the barbershops. He spoke to people. He went out throughout the city to the bodegas and said, I am listening to you. Lend me your vote. And that's all, at the end of the day, what people want to have. They want to feel like they're being listened to.
I think authenticity is really important. I think that people don't necessarily have to agree, but they want to know that you're shooting from the hip and that you say what you mean and you mean what you say.
Exactly. And I got to say, there's no one more authentic than Donald Trump. There is, on his gravestone, there will be many things that could be said, but one thing that absolutely, you could put down is authentic.
Well,
he is himself. He is a man from
We
Queens.
all saw the press conference with Zelensky, so we know.
This is a man from Queens at the end of the day who likes to eat McDonald's and, really enjoys talking to like the construction worker who lives in Kingsbridge. He enjoys talking to the bodega worker down in, the Lower East Side. This is a guy, he's an authentic New Yorker at the end of the day.
Okay, so let's look at some more images and some more logos and see what the thinking was behind some of these images.
Sure.
So this is one of your caucuses. This is the Arts Caucus. I did snoop around your website.
Oh, please do.
So tell me a little bit about this. Tell me about the decisions in terms of what you decided to put in this logo.
So for all of our caucuses, and the caucuses basically function as little squads in a sense. The Republican Party is a very big tent at the end of the day. We have people who are interested in certain things, and for the Arts Caucus, again, you see a lot of very artistic sort of representations right there with the paintbrush and the easel. But one thing that we actually tried to focus on is we made them monochromatic. What you see right there is they are in white and they are in black, right? Because it's a very striking sort of, you would think the Arts Caucus, why won't you use so many colors? But all of our caucuses, we use the white and we use the black because it's very striking and there's a unity. They are all using the same color palette, but they all represent and say different things right there. So as you can see,
what kind of things is the Art Caucus going to do?
Well, they hold a number of, one of the things they do actually is they hold a number of events, talking about, I believe recently they did a tour of, Manhattan, where they visited some of the spots that George Washington actually had the opportunity back in the day to visit. So doing a bit of a tour, sort of exploring the history, the architecture, the importance of our first president, and what were the places he visited? Why did he go to those places, right? Art is very important for a society. The idea that we have visual representations of things that matter a lot to us, right? So there's a sort of unity in the fact that our caucuses use the black and the white, but we're all unified in the sense that we all follow the same model.
It also reproduces better on a letter when you actually try to print. It actually prints better when you do a black and white logo.
Yes, yeah.
But I see a mass, and I see the mass is theater, and I see the paintbrush, but I don't know what those lines are on the side. What are those lines?
Well, for the most part, you really have to talk to the the Arts Caucus people themselves, because I think one of the things that makes the Young Republican Club so powerful is that, again, we have our little squads and we all report to sort of the head folks, but the caucuses are able to go out and really do the things that engage them and they're interested in the most.
So we have about 4 minutes left. I want to try to get through some of these images.
Sure.
So we're going to quickly see some more of those logos. This is the Black Caucus.
Yep. And
that's Frederick Douglass?
That is Frederick Douglass.
Okay,
again, a man who I believe resided for a time in New York City. And as you can see right there, probably the most important, at least I would say in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, one of the most important Black Americans. We have a number of members of the caucus who are Black, and they come from everywhere in the 5 boroughs, and we think, obviously we value their input, what they believe, and so this was started up basically to give a voice to Black members of the caucus who we want their concerns addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can we see the next one? This is
The Hispanic Caucus.
Hispanic Caucus.
So the Hispanic Caucus, as you can see right there, that's the Cross of St. James, 3 of them, I believe. A very important figure in Spain.
Oh, wow.
And if you see the sun as well, I forget the exact name, but that's a symbol of a lot of South American countries for their independence. I believe
wow.
it is on the flag of Argentina as well. So you have right there sort of the old world with
Wow.
the, as well as the new world. The sun,
Wow.
you know, for the new world, and the crosses for the old
Wow.
world. So
Okay. Can we see the next one? I'm not sure which one's next. That
Oh,
one is the
our favorite.
That's yours. Okay, tell me about this one,
So
please.
this is the Throgs Neck Bridge. Throgs Neck Bridge, and as you can see right there, bridge, a lot goes with a bridge. So for example, it's connecting two things together. The idea of building a bridge between someone, also the idea of burning a bridge. You know, for us, there's another caucus, the Queen's Caucus, which is the only other caucus that specifically focuses on a borough. We are the second one, the Bronx Caucus, and the Throgs Neck Bridge.
But why the Tross Neck?
What's that?
Why that bridge?
Because that connects Queens to the Bronx.
But what about Manhattan to the Bronx?
Oh well, you know that's more of a stylistic sort of
Oh,
you know,
okay,
but
okay.
that specifically we sort of chose that because it's a way to connect ourselves to another caucus, which you know we have to thank them for being, they were very instrumental in helping us sort of set up, we want to build bridges to communities all the way from Riverdale to Kingsbridge to the South Bronx to Pelham. We want to build and be that bridge that connects the citizens here to a
we
better
have like
future.
1 minute left, but
Sure.
I want to show. I have some images of you guys in the community doing things. So maybe we could quickly do a slideshow of them in the community doing. I guess I think this is what are your nutrition outreach things.
I believe so. Again,
So can we flash them quick, like one after the other? Yeah, thank you. I think this is some kind of giveaway, maybe.
Yep,
of
this
food
would
or
have been
something.
this would have been a giveaway that we
Yeah.
organized. You know,
Yeah.
that's our I believe that's our Helio, who's with our Hispanic Caucus. You know,
Okay.
very important member. I knew him. So, you know, we do a lot of outreach with the communities. We hold events.
Okay, so we have like 20 seconds
Yep,
left.
Sure.
We're going to have to wrap it up. I'm so glad you were able to come here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It is an absolute pleasure.
And hopefully, you know, you're going to do great things in the Bronx.
We plan to.
Thank you.
No worries.
I'ma show you how to party.